Bren from Spirits of Fashion. I am drinking a cup of cafe latte with oat milk that I made myself at Nostalgia Cafe that we just opened. I mentioned in my last video that we moved to Vermont about almost, well, it'll be 2 years in May, and we needed to get a good cup of coffee, and we decided we'll just open our own place. So we serve Peet's coffee, which is my favorite, and a lot of people love it. It's a high-end coffee that's always consistently good. But that's not what this video is about. Today we're going to be talking about why Spirits of Fashion, for my name, for my company. Why Spirits? So I'm going to just talk a little bit about that because I think it's important. I think when people go to my website or see my company name without knowing what it means, they might be a little bit puzzled. But really, there's a reason for it. When I started collecting antiques, vintage clothing, vintage accessories, I always had an affinity for it. And one of the main reasons was because I really feel that clothing from the past, any kind of material items from the past, tend to hold on to a part or a piece of the person or persons who owned them previously. And that just gives me a good feeling when I don't even know who owned the item, but I now own it. It makes me feel really good wondering about the history of the person who did wear it. Where did they go? Did they enjoy themselves while wearing that garment or using that accessory? Even things that maybe just plain decor in the home that are vintage. I have several items, and there's a big cookie jar that we have in our cafe, one of the old-fashioned cookie jars with pictures of cookies all over them, very 50s. And I wonder, who made cookies and put them in that jar. So that kind of thing. The other thing is I'm very interested in the spiritual realm as well. And I don't usually talk about that in my videos, but I thought I would mention it because it's one of the reasons that I did name my company Spirits of Fashion. Again, taking something from the past, bringing it into the future, giving it a new life, but also taking with it the spirit of the life that it had before. I've done a lot of ghost tours at Slater Mill in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's the oldest textile mill, cotton spinning mill in the country, really, and it was opened in 1793, and I was a tour guide there during the day when I was in graduate school. But then I met some people there who were doing some ghost tours at night because, again, a lot of feeling in those old buildings. They've been around for a long time, and what's left over there? What kind of energies are left over? And so I did these tours for a couple of years and enjoyed that as well, meeting a lot of interesting people. But it's along the same line, it's history, whether it's history in a story that we tell or history in something that we wear that may have its own story. So let me give you a couple of examples. One is this necklace I'm wearing. I have a lot of vintage jewelry. My collection is huge. If you're interested in ever seeing my collection of jewelry and other accessories, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to accommodate you on that. I have plenty of things to show. But this necklace I bought at a vintage store, but I don't know who owned it. That's okay. It doesn't keep me from buying it, but who did own it and did they love it when they had it? So that kind of thing is what's intriguing to me. This dress behind me is a 1940s piece, and I've shown this when I've done other videos and other presentations, but it is so fabulous with the sequin trim, both at the little pocket level and at the neckline, because in the 40s, remember, it's not something that was expected to be over the top. In the 40s, with the war, especially World War II, people had to be very careful in how things were designed, how much fabric was used, how much extra accessories or trim was used. So in this case, they did a very good job in terms of making it interesting looking without using a lot of extra anything or anything too expensive. I wore this to my stepson's wedding, but I don't know who wore it before I did. I would love to know. but I always have a good feeling when I look at it and when I wear it. So I always think it's a good energy that's coming through from that last life that it had. But I'm happy to give it a new life as well. Similarly, this is a very, very interesting piece. It's a two-piece 50s outfit, and it's a summer outfit, as you can see. It has a little halter top with elastics in the back as a band, and it just has a sort of collar halter neck here, all cotton. And then the skirt is so interesting. This is the back, but the front of the skirt, the great, great, interesting pattern and print on there. Just very different. 50s was known for novelty prints. So I love to think of the person who may have worn this, a young woman who may have been going out for a day at the beach in the summer, or after she left the beach, putting this on to go out to dinner. So I just think it's a pretty example of a 50s piece that probably carries a great deal of history. The suit that I have from the 1950s as well, I just think this is so fabulous. It has a mink collar. I don't wear fur usually. When it's vintage fur and it's this old, I feel that it is a good way of recycling, without killing more animals. That's just how I feel about it. It's a personal choice. But look at the tie in the back. It's just such an interesting detail. It's all wool. It's in perfect condition. And the skirt that goes with it is typical 50s skirt. It's below the knee, but it's fairly narrow. It doesn't have skin tight feel to it, but it's not a flowing skirt either. It's not a wide skirt. So perfect combination of this suit. And again, who wore this suit? Who wore it and where? Where did they go in it? If only the clothing could talk, we'd be all set. And then finally with the clothing, I have a 60s paper dress. I've been doing a lot of swinging 60s presentations lately. And this is a true paper dress from the period. Right around mid-decade, different companies came out with these paper dresses, and one of them was Campbell's Soup. If you sent in 3 labels from their cans and $1, you could get a paper dress in a package, and it had Campbell's Soup cans all over it. This one looks more like Marimekko. I bought it from one of my friends and vendors from our store Nostalgia that we had in Providence. And so she or her sister or her mom owned it. I don't know if it was actually my friend or if it was her mom, but they did keep all their clothing. So when my friend came in, she would bring in pieces of the collection that she, her mom, and sister had owned all through the years. So this is one of those pieces. I really treasure this. It's in great condition considering it's paper and how old it is. Who wore this? This is a 20s nightcap, a little boudoir accessory, if you will, and it's in perfect condition. It's got daisies all around it and at the top, and it's a beautiful peach colored satin. And just imagine a lady with a bob haircut and in the 20s and wearing a beautiful nightgown and maybe matching this. Did she relax in this? Was it something she felt she had to do, she had to wear? Just interesting things to think about. And then last but not least for clothing, this is a slip that I just find intriguing because of the beautiful detail at the bottom. It's a longer half slip, so probably 50s. It says, it's very hard to read it, Celine, I think it says on there, but I love that detail, that insert, and beautiful, almost lace-like detail on the slip. And it's just a black with very light beige insert in that. So what outfit was worn over this slip is what I want to know, and where did they go in it? I mustn't forget 2 of the most important pieces that I own. One is my wedding ring and engagement ring, sapphire and diamonds, and I'm showing this because of the history of it. I don't know who the owners were, but I obtained the rings through a friend of mine who owns and runs, doesn't own it, but runs an antique store in Salem, Massachusetts. And she sourced these rings for me. And the engagement ring was separate, And it's not, I don't think that old, but it's an estate piece. So it was, I'm sure, probably someone else's engagement ring. It'd be nice to know who wore it. And then the diamond band, which is now attached, was at least 100 years old when I bought that ring. It had a lot of fragility where the diamonds are, so it had to be remade eventually so that the diamonds wouldn't start falling out. And then it was attached to the engagement ring. But again, who wore that? So I just love having that little piece of history, and I get more compliments on this ring. The other ring I'm wearing was my grandmother's, and it's an onyx ring, and very early 20th century or deco period, and it has a little diamond chip. It then belonged to my mom, and then when my mom passed, I inherited this ring. This was my favorite one. It did have years ago, and I think the 70s is when we lost it, but it had a little white cameo right here. And my mom went to get it cleaned, and the jeweler lost the cameo, and we could never replace it. Fortunately, I still love it with just the diamond. I think it's a wonderful ring, and whenever I wear it, I feel a bit of my mom and grandmother too. So another wonderful piece of history. So I didn't want to leave that one out. Last but not least is a lucite purse from the 50s. These were very popular back then. I have a couple of examples of these, and this is really intriguing. I never saw one like this. It's, hopefully you can see it. I know there's some glare there, but it's a plastic, sort of a, hard to even say what kind of pattern that is, but there's little gold spangles throughout. And it has this, as you can see, double handle, and then it has two compartments. It has this upper compartment, which again, just plain inside, no lining or anything like that. This was just kind of a novelty thing in the 50s. And then a little bigger compartment there. So I think this would even fit a cell phone. So this could even be used nowadays. So I just, again, who wore it? Who picked this out and said, I have to have this bag? It fit their personality or whatever. So those are the kinds of things that I mean when I talk about bringing someone's energy from the past, or their spirit, so to speak, the spirit of their lives, and what they did, and who they did them with, and places that they went. I have a bag. I have such a bag collection, vintage bags, and one of them, I can't even remember which one, but when you open it up, it has a little tiny matchbook from a club in New York City. And it just made me so happy because somebody used that bag in New York, hopefully, and had a wonderful time doing it. So that's the reason why I named my company Spirits of Fashion. So if you're ever wondering, that's the reason. And it makes me happy. And I just love knowing that there's history there in whatever garments and accessories that I show and that I wear and collect. So if you enjoyed this video today and you'd like to hear more, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you'll know when all of my videos come out. And I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.